Dollars, cents, euros, gold and silver, a plastic card, digital codes, symbols that seem utterly different, yet they all share a strange power we've collectively agreed upon. How did this happen? What's the story behind this incredible shared belief we call money? My name is Chatia, and I have spent a long time wandering through the corridors of time. Today, I invite you to join me on a breathtaking, lightning-fast journey to witness together the birth of the first currency, the audacity of paper that held the promise of gold, right up to the echo of code in our digital world. It's a story of our innovation and our fragile trust. Are you ready? Let's begin. We've always looked back at the distant past as an age of simplicity, haven't we? A quiet life of hunting and farming. But let me tell you a little secret from my travels through time. The simplicity wasn't always easy, especially when it came to the most basic needs of life, getting what you want for what you have. Think with me. Today, you want coffee? You swipe your card. Want a book? You click a button. It seems almost magical, but your ancestors' ancestors, before the first dinar gleamed or the first banknote was printed, lived in the world of barter, a word that sounds quaint, doesn't it? But in reality, it was a daily maze, a real chronic headache. Imagine Ilara the weaver. Her luxurious scarf couldn't buy her the fig she craved. Why? The fig farmer wanted an axe, the axe maker needed leather, and the leather tanner was the only one who wanted her scarf. An exhausting journey from hand to hand, scarf for leather, leather for an axe, and finally, axe for a basket of figs. One scarf, a simple desire, a complex chain of coincidence and luck. This wasn't just a story, it was the law of that age. It didn't really matter what you owned, but what someone else wanted. And this made the idea of accumulating wealth or saving for the future almost an illusion. Truly, history itself was crying out for a solution, a common language of value to break these chains. And amidst the headache of barter, it was noticed that certain things, due to their rarity or usefulness, became generally desirable, even without immediate need. That was the first whisper of value transcending direct use, and the beginning of the solution to come. Whispers of value, salt of the earth and shells of the sea. We left history crying out for a solution, a muffled cry against the chaos of barter. And as humans do when faced with a pressing problem, they start experimenting. The abstract idea of money didn't appear all at once. It began as whispers, whispers of value, embodied in tangible things around them. Your salary was literally salt. Yes, so table salt. Here, on the banks of great rivers and shores, adorned the first civilizations. So an easier idea began to emerge. Why not use something that many people always want? Think about salt. It wasn't just white grains, but the secret to preserving their food and the flavor of their lives, or the furs that warmed bodies in winter. These commodity monies became the first true medium of exchange. Instead of the arduous search for the right buyer, it was enough to find someone who would accept this valuable commodity. It was the first whisper of a monetary language we could all understand. Salt wasn't just food, it was accepted value, a real currency, a step forward, certainly. Oh, but still, a bit cumbersome, wouldn't you say? Yes, these commodities taught us how to save ready and plan for the future, a little, but it was a stumbling start. Imagine, how do you divide a lump of salt and to pay a small price? Is the quality of this wheat the same as the one I took yesterday? Will this fur remain in good condition? Problems of division, quality, and durability made trust shaky, and every transaction a risky venture. So commodities were a necessary but faltering bridge. The search began for something more solid, non-perishable, uniform in value, and perhaps capable of bearing a seal of trust, something shiny that the earth hid beneath our feet, waiting for someone to discover and polish it. We left the human mind yearning for something more solid and durable than fragile salt or easily broken shells. The earth itself, in its deep silence, held the answer in its core, a faint gleam of precious metals, gold, silver, copper, materials seemingly created for this role. They don't spoil easily, are precisely divisible, largely uniform, and hold great value in a small weight. These metals began to seep into markets as a better medium, but even this gleam wasn't without its headaches. I remember the bewilderment of merchants, carrying their precise scales for every transaction, and the endless doubt about the purity of the ingot. Was this pure gold or mixed with a cheaper metal? It was a step forward, but still a heavy one, bound by the need to weigh and verify every time. Until that pivotal moment came, it doesn't matter exactly where, but the spark was the same. What if we got rid of the doubt and the scales? What if a trusted authority, like a king or a city, guaranteed the weight and purity by placing an official stamp on the metal? This brilliant idea transformed the piece of metal with a defined weight and purity into more than just metal. It became a sealed promise, indeed a certificate of trust traded instantly. This small stamp, my friends, was a true revolution, not just an improvement. It freed trade from the constraints of weight and doubt, allowing markets to flourish like never before. It enabled states to collect taxes efficiently and fund the armies that built empires. For the first time, wealth became something standardized, portable, and widely recognized. It was no longer just an idea, but a gleaming reality in the palm of your hand. So the shiny, stamped coins spread like wildfire. The solution seemed perfect, but as trade flourished and wealth accumulated, and these gleaming coins themselves began to turn into a heavy and dangerous burden. Transporting bags of gold and silver became a liability and a target for thieves. Could the solid solution become an obstacle? From the Far East, whispers began of an idea that seemed crazy, replacing metal with something light like paper, carrying the same promise of gold. Could trust it really be printed on paper? We left the gleaming metal having become a burden to its bearer. So how could trust, that most precious value, take a lighter form, traveling across distances easily and safely? The answer, my friend, came not from the hardness of stone or the glint of gold, but from a material that seemed the weakest of all: paper. Money made from tree bark. Yes, it really happened here, Imperial China, over 1,000 years ago, where their practical wisdom preceded the rest of the world by centuries. There, amidst the bustle of trade on the Silk Road, the idea was born. It didn't start as money in the full sense. I recall flying cash and day deposit certificates allowing merchants to avoid carrying heavy metal. But the real leap came later, with the Jiaozi, the first official banknotes in history. Their texture was surprisingly light, bearing intricate engravings to prevent counterfeiting, and most importantly, carrying a promise. And the whole secret lay in this promise. Each note represented real gold or silver in the vaults. Imagine accepting it instead of metal for the first time. What a tremendous leap of faith. The moment the printed trust that astonished the world was born. But this paper trust was as fragile as a butterfly's wing. How easy it was to weaken before the temptation to print just a few more notes than the gold in the vaults covered. How many times have I seen rulers succumb to this temptation, to fund their wars or luxuries, turning the promise into an illusion, the paper's value collapsing and birthing the monster of inflation that devours people's savings. Paper taught us a harsh lesson. Trust is built slowly and destroyed in a flash. Despite its risks, paper spread globally, but for centuries remained merely a shadow of gold, tied to the precious metal as the ultimate guarantee of value, until 1971 came, and that Nixon shock, which shook the financial system. Suddenly, it was declared that the most powerful currency was no longer exchangeable for gold. The umbilical cord to the tangible substance was severed. On this scale, for the first time, money was left to float freely, relying solely on trust in authority. That was the moment of birth for our current financial era with radically different rules. a moment when the world held its breath. In 1971, the Nixon shock, it wasn't just an economic decision, it was an earthquake that changed the rules of the money game that had lasted for centuries. So why did the most powerful nation sever its currencies linked to gold, that safe haven long considered the foundation of value? Gold was no longer king. Trust became the real currency. Here, the tangled world of the mid-20th century, the reasons were complex. The pressures of the Vietnam War, mounting debt, and demands from other countries, especially France, to convert their accumulated dollars into real gold from US vaults, all threatened to deplete the gold reserves. So the decision, bold and controversial, was the quickest solution to stop the bleeding. Abolish the dollar's convertibility into gold, and thus, on a global scale, what we call fiat money was born. The word fiat is Latin, and meaning let it be, or by decree. Money no longer derived its value from a precious metal, but from the government's order that it is legal tender, and from our collective trust in that order and that government. I remember, metaphorically of course, the confusion that gripped global financial markets. How could a banknote retain its value without gold backing? The idea seemed like black magic or a dangerous gamble. But slowly, things settled down. The world learned to deal with this new reality, and central banks became the new high priests, managing the value of this fiat money through complex monetary policy tools. This free money gave governments unprecedented flexibility to manage their economies and face crises without being tied to the limited quantity of gold. But it also opened the floodgates to the risk of runaway inflation. If the power to print money was misused, we moved from the constraints of metal to the constraints of wisdom, or lack thereof, sometimes, among policymakers. Understanding central bank decisions became more important than knowing the amount of gold in the vaults. Money was freed from its final physical tether, becoming an abstract idea based on trust and authority. But even this free money was about to face another revolution, coming not from governments or banks, but from the minds of engineers and the burgeoning internet, a revolution that would turn even printed notes into mere digital ghosts. We left money freed from its physical anchor, becoming an idea and a promise based on trust. But even this promise was about to dissolve, turning into invisible whispers, traveling at the speed of light and through the network of wires. The era of money's disappearance had begun. Most of your money isn't real, just digital data. Here, the late 20th century. This time, the revolution came not from kings or banks, but from the minds of engineers, and the roar of computers and the internet. I remember its beginnings, those small plastic cards with their magnetic stripes. What magic that was. It turned payment from hand to hand into a mere swipe and a fleeting electronic signal. Then came the internet, opening the floodgates to commerce and banking everywhere, anytime. Money was no longer something you carried in your pocket, but data swimming in the network. Imagine the first online purchase. No gold or paper moved, just an adjustment of numbers in giant electronic ledgers. The majority of the world's wealth today consists of these digital whispers, invisible data flitting between servers, yet moving economies and deciding fates. Yes, this digital revolution brought incredible speed and efficiency in transactions across continents in moments and unprecedented global trade. But this intangible world has its other face. Cybersecurity became a constant obsession. How easy it is to steal what cannot be seen, and privacy evaporates with every click that leaves a trace. We replaced the weight of metal with the lightness of data, and perhaps with some hidden fragility. So, money today is fast, invisible, and dominated by technology and banks. But is this the end of the story? Or is there another whisper echoing in the corners of the internet? A whisper of a different kind of money, not governed by a central authority, but built on code and distributed trust? An idea that seems magical and might just be the next most radical revolution. That whisper of money, without masters or intermediaries, didn't remain a whisper. In the wake of the 2008 crisis, is an shaken trust in traditional systems. A bold idea emerged from the depths of the digital world, carried by the mysterious pseudonym of a digital ghost, unknown to this day, Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi's idea was revolutionary. Bitcoin, a financial system operating directly between individuals, without banks or governments. How? Through the amazing blockchain technology, a public ledger, encrypted and open to all, secured by mathematics, where every transaction is recorded. Almost forever, no central authority controls it, but a global network of users ensures its integrity. It's an attempt to create mathematical trust as an alternative to trust in institutions. And since Bitcoin, the world of cryptocurrencies has exploded with thousands of promising coins. I remember the enthusiasm of dreamers, envisioning a fairer, more transparent financial world, restoring power to individuals. Conversely, I see the anxiety of governments and bankers, and experts' warnings about their wild volatility, turning them into risky speculation at their massive energy consumption and their dubious use in the shadows. It's truly a story with two edges, as sharp as a sword. This new digital revolution raises fundamental questions. Can code and mathematics create real, stable money? Can a decentralized system compete with the security and efficiency of entrenched, centralized systems? Are we witnessing the birth of the future of money, or just a shiny tech bubble destined to burst? The answer, my friends, is still being written now, and every day brings new developments. We stand today at a unique moment in the long journey of money, from direct barter to the gleam of metal, and then the promise of paper, the ghosts of data, and now the echo of the code. Each step was an attempt to solve the problems of the last, and each step brought new challenges. It's an incredible story of human innovation and of that elusive idea we call value, which ultimately depends on our trust and agreement. And the future, it seems it will hold more of this amazing mix and unexpected risks. What do you think of this journey? And what future do you predict for money? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this journey through time has enriched you, don't hesitate to like and subscribe to Chatia for more explorations into the depths of history.